That was the sound.
I don't like that.
That's the sound you're supposed to make to Craig's sound.
So now everything you say, Craig knows.
Should I read our new checking account number?
Yeah. Oh God. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I want to go through my usernames and passwords like one by one.
Oh
just to
man.
make
Do you guys have Alexa or any of those assistants?
No.
Okay, because they listen all the time, so that's
fuck them. Although they're helpful, as we
do
found out in that
have-
smart Google.
I do have that woman on my phone. I should turn her off.
Who? Oh,
The Google woman.
is that Alexa?
No.
No,
is
it's
it?
Google
No.
Assistant. She doesn't get it.
Oh, Google Assistant has no name. A Google Assistant has no name.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh man.
Google Assistant has no name.
Who killed the Night King? My phone did.
Oh, that's the version millennials would write.
I know.
When we think that DB Weiss and David Benioff couldn't be any, like, nobody's worse than that. It's like, well, millennial DB and Davy.
Everything millennials the worst somehow. I don't know why.
I don't either, but I believe it.
I do too.
Yeah, we're all millennials. So, all right.
Eh.
I can tell by how snarky we're being.
Yeah, well.
All right. So we're technically already doing a podcast. I guess I'll say welcome to Mr. Podcast with Claude. And who else is on the line?
Justin!
Hey, who else we got?
Hey, it's what do I go by on this?
You pick your own name.
What's my nom de plume?
It's me, the three-eyed raven.
God. You don't want to be on this podcast because you don't want anything.
Right, I've transcended beyond want.
Except for the finale when you want a lot of shit, don't you?
Oh, I've always wanted this.
I've never
was
wanted
what
anything
everything
more.
was leading to.
Why do you think I rolled all the way here?
Oh, and he brought his own chair.
This is my throne.
So if you can't tell, we're talking about Game of Thrones.
Oh, do we not mention that?
This is our best podcast ever already. So, quick context. Talking about the Game of Thrones finale. This is Tuesday after it aired. I saw it Sunday live. Justin and Ginny saw it just now. So their reactions are going to be a little bit more in the moment. I've had some time to process. So, yeah, guys. So what you think of the best episode ever?
We just spoiled who ends up on the throne before we even said what the podcast.
So what? If you're listening to a podcast,
they're gonna click on it. They're gonna know it's
gonna say Game of Thrones series finale on it. If they fucking listen, no offense, but like you know what you're in for.
Yeah, you know what you're in
for. Fair enough. Horrible.
So yeah, I think we should be free to spoil anything we want at this point, and to do it in a dramatic fashion.
Spoil it while wearing a cape or something, a monocle.
That's exactly what
Holding
I mean.
That skull from the stage performances of Hamlet.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Is that Hamlet's father? Is that who he's talking to?
Who's
he talking to?
No, it's the Lord of Bones.
It's the Lord of Bones. Oh God, what does the Lord of Bones want?
I don't know, and neither did the writers.
Oh God, yeah, I love how the Lord of Light showed up in the finale. Right? Wasn't he there?
That was the best part.
Oh, that was the greatest part. Yeah, I mean, could you imagine? But here's the thing, and this is going to come up a lot because there's a lot of places they could have made what they wrote actually work, and they didn't. But like, imagine if there was some allusion to the Lord of Light or the spirit of the Lord of Light being in Drogon, right? Imagine that idea, considering what he does in the episode.
Yeah.
And he's this is why I hate writers. Because they get so close to things and then they just don't do the thing. We could be like, that would be mind blowing if Drogon turned to Jon and he's like, I am the Lord of Light or something. Like, you know what I mean?
God.
Yeah,
Terrifying.
exactly.
You know where they could have done that is in the scene at the end of the Battle of Winterfell when the Lady Melisandre is walking away and Davos is watching. If she starts to take her necklace off and then she turns around, oh, by the way, Drogon is the Lord of Light, and then takes her necklace off.
I just have one more thing to say.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing more important than the Lord of Light was Jon Snow's real parentage.
Yeah, that was super important.
Yeah.
You know, I kept talking about how, like, oh, they told us that for a reason. It's going to be real important. Well,
so they broke that several times. They broke that cardinal rule of writing, you know, where something, you know, I was talking to my boss today about the show. He liked it, and I was saying, you know, the Targaryen reveal didn't really do anything, and he kind of tried to argue that, you know, and listen, the most that it did was it put a small wedge between Dany and Jon to where after she lost all of the people around her and she really kind of only had Jon left, she didn't even have him because of that you know, he's the greatest threat to her. But that being said, she still was thinking, well, Jon's my guy up until the moment he kills her, right?
Yeah.
She was still like, hey, it can be me and you against the world. So in one way it did a very small thing, which is not enough. And in another way, it didn't even really matter, which is a huge thing. So that's the most I'll give it being deferential is like it did a very small thing. And the other thing that was weird was Varys was like writing these letters. Here's the other thing that didn't really pay off. He's writing these letters to the leaders of the kingdoms that the Jon's true heritage, and it came to nothing.
It didn't matter at all.
No one ever knew. It came out to nothing. And then, like, I was like, you know, the Varys' death is one of the most egregious things ever. The way it happened, because Jon and Tyrion had the same crime that Varys is being punished for, and they could have easily made his crime, oh, Daenerys caught you writing these letters and spreading her secret, and now you
that would have been better.
Oh, and then you have Jon and Tyrion like not feeling complicit in his murder because they should be dying too, you know?
Right.
Oh man.
I actually do sort of like this idea that in his last moments, Varys is trying to send letters to try to say, and that it doesn't go anywhere. Because that feels like realistic, and that feels like one of those few ways that they're holding over the thing that they used to do of, you know, setting up a scenario where you think, oh, okay, here's the way that the good guy's going to triumph or whatever. But then no, the good guy doesn't.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it reminds me of like the scene where Rob and Catelyn are talking about like how they're gonna go like attack Casterly Rock, like right after the Red Wedding. They don't call it the Red Wedding, but you know, right after that wedding, we'll just go like we'll hit them where their home is, and like it's this big like, oh yeah, they're gonna strike back against the Lannisters, and it gets you pumped up for that. And then it's like, yeah, that didn't matter at all. That was complete like, you know, they have no idea they're about to die. So it's like, it's a little bit like that in a way. It's like he doesn't know he's about to die. So, but
he should know because he's Varys and he knows that he's a threat to her. And I just feel like he should have been like, I need to get out of here. Like, you know,
right? He should have run away and written. I'm not
safe. He was real casual about the treason. Yeah. He was just like, yeah, like I'm just gonna hang out.
Casual treason.
Boom.
Yeah, he's a little too smart.
Yeah, he just like Jon Snow walked up and he was like, "Hey, like, what about treason? What about you're the king now? What about that? What are you gonna do? Yeah. I just said it. Yep. What's your reaction?" It was like, "Whoa, dude, calm down."
Yeah, I mean, and
he should have been sneakier. It just felt like it wasn't his way of enacting his plans before. It was just way more subtle. It's like it's ridiculous to talk about subtlety when it comes to the show. At this
single character got dumber this season.
Yeah, like, definitely.
Just
definitely.
everybody.
Yeah.
Just dumb. It was like that thing on Lost. Remember the early seasons of Lost where we were like, maybe there's some force on the island that makes them not want to talk to each other about the mysteries. It makes them it makes them not even want to leave. It just makes them. It's just weird, it's just like there was some weird effect over this season where everyone got dumber. Everyone like just forgot how to do the basic things. It was so weird. Okay, so let's quantify this. So on a letter grade or number 1 to 10, what do you give this? What do you give? Yeah, let's just talk about the finale. What do you give the finale?
I give it an S.3. Wait, what's the scale? You said 11. 1 to 10 being ultimate disappointment.
Yeah, or like A to F, like F.
Letter grade.
10 is good. 10
a letter grade
good.
or a numerical grade.
10 is
one you
good.
prefer.
0 would be bad. A is good. F would be bad.
All right.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah. He gets paid the big bucks for that kind of thing.
I feel like we owe you tuition.
I'm sorry, we said S.30. So
yeah, you on the lookout for his bill.
I definitely bill by the.
Yeah, I that's hard for me to say because I think everybody going in, and I've seen this in a few of the reviews that I read briefly while we were getting set up for this, that the standard that you hold something to is really dependent on what your expectations are. And I've seen a lot of people say my expectations were rock bottom, so it was fine. And that's, I don't know.
Yeah, which sort of doesn't say a lot, right? If your expectations were low and then you thought it was okay, then that's not really a good sign, right? If you say, hey, do you recommend this restaurant? And you're like, well, we went there, we had 0 expectations, and it was all right. Like, I don't think I want to go to that restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, if 2014 me had seen this episode, I would have been ready to Dracarys all of Hollywood.
Nice.
But wow. I think I'm going to say...
At least you'd have a reason.
True.
Is revenge not a reason?
Motivation, yeah. And that was before my character arc, so it would make sense.
Right.
I don't know, a C. I'm going to say a C.
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, to me it depends on how you think about it. Like, as a standalone episode, I think I agree. It was like a C, maybe a C-, like, not great, 5 or so. As a series finale, worse, in my opinion. As a series finale, it's like... I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It was like competently filmed. The color grading was fine. The sound was clear. I could hear what people were saying.
But it ended with
nobody cares about all that.
It was on a story level. Like there were some moments that I thought were decent. So, and in terms of being a series finale, I was okay with a couple of the ending points, even though I think they didn't earn any of them really, but they just kind of put them there on screen. Like, here's the end. Like, okay, I wish they could have actually made the story get there instead of just like, and here's the thing. But I would probably. I mean, I hesitate to give it like the worst grade ever, but how about D- or something?
Whoa.
Maybe a 2 or 3 for a series finale. At standalone episode, it wasn't that bad. It's just the only reason why it seems so bad is because it's closing out this long series. Great to me, like book wise, I like the books. I think it's a really interesting story. There's a lot of great stuff that happens, especially earlier on. And as a payoff to that, and the characters, like there's a lot of really good characters on the show. I just feel like it's a total disaster on that front. So that's why I can't really grade it as a single thing. It's because it's more than one thing. It's an episode and it's a series finale.
What grade would you give to the scene where you find out that Braun has been appointed to the small council? And that Samwell Tarly has written a book called A Song of Ice and Fire.
Did he not become the Hurley of the show?
Totally the Hurley.
I was like, wow, you're Hurley. Yeah. Damn.
He's always been Hurley. I've always thought of him as the Hurley of the show.
Yeah, but it's like, it was like way too much. Way too much.
Uber Hurley.
I would give it, I think I'm sort of inverse of Justin. I feel like I give it I think it's a better finale than it is a standalone episode, because I thought overall where the characters ended up, I was generally happy with. How they got there was problematic, which is the whole problem of this whole season.
Yeah.
Was the execution was sloppy, but kind of the overall point and goal I don't have a huge problem with. The biggest thing, Bran, the scene with Bran becoming the king, I thought was weird, because Tyrion kind of conflated a lot of different reasons on why he's the best choice. And so if you pick through each reason, I think they have various levels of merit. So like the first reason was he has the best story, and I think that's that it has the least amount of merit, because I think Sansa's story and Arya's story is great.
Yeah, so not true. Brand's story
Yeah,
is like a fucking mess. Like, no, no, no.
yeah. I mean, and it kind of it
Yeah.
works in a way that it has a cyclical nature, where he's the one who, the thing with Jamie push him out the window sort of started this thing, and so he's sort of ending it. So I like that idea, but to him having the best story, I don't think was really true, and I think Tyrion didn't do a good job articulating why Bran's particular story would be good for the public to hear. Like what about his story makes it suitable for the people to say, yeah, we like his story the best? You know what I mean? I didn't really
Right.
understand what
He's
in particular
completely
about his story.
unrelatable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like, oh, is it, like, because he could have said, something like Bran the Broken, this boy who would be king, having this disability and then actually becoming king, and that's what the people need to hear. They need to hear a triumph over adversity. They've just been slaughtered by Dragonfire and the rule of all these tyrannous people, so they can put themselves in Bran's shoes, and they're the broken people now, and they need to know that they can one day become great. Like, tell us why that really is apt
Yeah.
for the people. So they skipped over that, and the biggest reason I think they chose Bran, which I agree with, in terms of like the sort of hierarchy of how the power is wielded over these people, is the idea that with choosing Bran, he can't have any heirs. Not, I love the line of, sons of kings are bastards or whatever, or assholes or whatever. I thought that was a great line. They could all understand that, because they all have been tormented by sons of kings. But this
Hmm.
idea that we're going to go to this new paradigm where rulers are chosen and not just a birthright thing. So like, to me, like, that is the number one reason to choose Bran. There's no other reason that's more important than that one reason, because that changes the paradigm, and no other character can fill those shoes. All the other reasons, I thought you could nitpick and say, no, this doesn't really work.
I mean, I think, yeah, I hear that. I think I thought that was a very dumb and unsatisfying choice. I don't know who likes that choice really over Sansa, who I think is a much more compelling story
Mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm.
terms of triumph over adversity and all of this. And much more relatable, given that, for example, she still like identifies as a human being. um but I think like his it was good to see someone finally call out the asset that he is, because we really have not seen
Mm-hmm.
his we haven't seen him leveraged for what he has. But I also think it's like really, i I don't like the idea that he would even go to this convening. That just doesn't seem to fit for me. I mean, you think about the previous
Mm-hmm.
Three-Eyed Raven, who stayed in this tree for so long that roots grew into him, like waiting for Bran, and now Bran is just like going down to the capital so
He
he can
doesn't
become
care.
king.
Yeah, it's super weird. I mean, it belies the whole conflict with the Three-Eyed Raven and the Night King. It seems
Yeah.
like, yeah, you should go be the Three-Eyed Raven. And that line everyone is harping on justifiably, of like, he said a couple episodes he doesn't want anymore. And so it's
Yeah.
weird. And then it's weird to have the flip side of that being, why do you think I came all this way? So it's like, okay, dude, are you, so in hindsight, is it like you don't want anymore because you understand how things will play out? So the concept of wanting is fruitless because you can see the chess pieces, the chess moves as they're being, so is it this like semantics thing that you don't want anymore, but you like, because there's no
Right.
need to want when you have this knowledge, like I'm like, is that what we're supposed to think in hindsight? Because it's super weird to be like, yeah, because he's not even like the reluctant king, which is the sort of trope that John was, sort of fulfilling. Like, I don't really want it, but he's the one who should be chosen. That, in this sort of archetypical way. But yeah, it's the brand thing was super weird. It was. I mean, I listen. I think Sansa's the best choice in general, but I think for the idea which I was most interested in, which is there's no more Iron Throne, there's none more monarchy. Like, to me, like, that was the most bold thing the show could do that I was really hoping for. I was glad when the Iron Throne got melted, and I'm glad that they left it with, we're going to try this new form of, how we choose our rulers. I love that. And I don't think you get that with Sansa, because she could get married and have kids, and then we're back to this whole the heirs rule everything. But I think
Yeah.
to please the fans, I'm upset for people who, and I'm one of them, who was Team Dany this whole time, and then she turns to the Mad Queen, and that's upsetting. And then Sansa has such a great story, and played by a great actress, and you're really rooting for her the whole time, and then like she doesn't, it's this weird thing where she doesn't get the thing everybody knows she should get. And when you don't have women writers on staff, and you make these choices where you choose men over women in these sort of ways, and women get these sort of treatments that don't sit well with people, is tough. It's tough to it's sort of indefensible.
Yeah, I do like that she ends up Queen of the North, and she just says, we're not going to bow to a Southern king.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think that
even
works.
her, brother, sort of.
Right.
Like, you would think that would like overcome that, but yeah, I think like it was sort of a consolation prize, but I think it also makes sense. I don't know. It sort of makes sense to me to have Sansa up north as opposed to like ruling the whole thing. But I don't think. I mean, the brand thing's weird to me.
Yeah, and then
it's
right, and then he rolls out of his first, small council meeting to go like what, warg into a dragon. Like, you got this
I
person.
didn't like that. Because it
That
made it
was
seem like he was
ridiculous.
going to convince Drogon to come back or something. Which
I
Which is a
guess.
the whole
bad
point should be, there's
idea.
no more, like, we're done with that. There's no more
Right,
dragons
that's
anymore.
dangerous. You
Yeah, I was
can't do
surprised the
that.
dragon actually survived to the end of the show. I
I
didn't think
loved how
that would
he
happen.
carried a plot point out the window with him. He picked up Danny and flew. Like, he's literally like, no funeral, no need to mourn, no need to tell anyone
Yeah,
else. He's just gonna
yeah,
carry that plot point away. Okay, so let's talk about the
yeah.
dragon scene, because I'm really conflicted about this. I think there's this weird like levels of intelligence that they're showing us dragons potentially have, and I'm curious where you guys land on this, because I think there's certain things I agree is probably true, and then there's certain things I'm like, I don't know if I want to give the dragon that much credit. So I'll lay these things out, and you tell me what you guys think. So the very baseline is like, Drogon saw a pointy thing sticking out of his mother. He looked at
Oh
the
no.
chair, and he
Oh
saw
no.
that the chair has pointy things on it. And so in a less intellectual way, he destroyed the Iron Throne because he sort of it connects to this metaphor that this power thing is the reason she's dead, but it's more about something physical with this chair. I'm just going to destroy this chair. So that's the basic level. The next level up is Drogon destroyed the Iron Throne because he knew it was this seeking of power that killed his mother in this sort of metaphorical way, um, which gives the dragons a lot of intelligence and a lot of emotional psychology.
I know
And
it
then
would be
the
nice
highest
if it were true,
and then the
but
highest level is this idea that not only did he put the pieces together, but he also knew that his mother's greatest plan was to break the wheel. And he
oh my
decided,
god.
well, I'm going to break the wheel. I'm going to do the thing she couldn't do and break the wheel. So there's kind of three levels, the highest being the most intelligent and emotionally, adept dragon there is. So where do you guys fit on that and your assessment of that scene?
Do you want to? You're
Uh,
shaking your head.
I don't know what I think. It's like, okay, there's like multiple ways to think about it. So there's
Okay.
oops. So there's edit that out, Craig. Anyway, so there's like the idea that of like, okay, let me try to explain. So like what the writers meant versus like what do I think is realistic for a dragon versus like what do I think should be the answer in the story if I were writing it. I don't know. You see what I mean? It's like hard to know what perspective to try to take there.
Well,
Um,
how did you take it? Like, what if you were going to interpret that scene, how do you interpret it?
I mean, I feel like the pointy chair thing is that logical explanation, but it just seems well. Yeah, I know, but it seems like a you know it's that seems a bit silly for such a pivotal moment.
Hmm.
It's like there's something goofy about like, oh, the pointy chair
Yeah.
killed my mommy. Like, really? That's how the Iron Throne is destroyed? Like, okay, but I agree that like you can't give him too much credit. Like, I thought that in the moment, it felt to me like I don't know if he even knew that Jon Snow did it, but if he did, then I felt like he might have given him a pass either because he's a Targaryen or because he had earned their trust before or something. I thought that it was just a way to take out his feeling of grief of losing his mother basically,
Like, do you
and
think
he
it
just
was
blew fire on like the nearest thing, and he just didn't kill John because I don't know,
okay?
he had some
So
some weird
the
lingering sense
chair
of
was
loyalty.
at the wrong place, wrong time.
That was my impression, that it was
Yeah.
just there. It was the thing
Yeah.
to burn. I didn't necessarily think he was like, I'm gonna burn that chair.
Yeah.
That's how it seemed to me when I watched it.
That
But
was my
Okay.
impression as well, and I just interpreted that he just didn't like it wouldn't have occurred to him that John would have killed his mommy.
yeah, maybe
You know,
maybe
Yeah.
he didn't really think
these
about
two
that. Yeah.
people,
He didn't see it happen.
Yeah, so dragons are in fantasy are supposed to be very intelligent, and there is a slight idea that they can understand. Like I was talking to my boss at work about this, and he was saying, well, that scene when Tyrion is trying to free Viserion in the dungeon, and he tells him, I'm not gonna, don't eat me, blah blah blah, and Viserion like sticks his neck out and helps him out to
Oh
undo the
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So there's this idea that maybe they can understand the language they're speaking. And I don't know if I want to go so far so they really understand the like socio-political machinations of all these people, right? But my take is sort of, I'm in the middle ground. I think he understood, because there's the other thing too, which I think the books delve into more, but I think it's supposed to be true in the show, that Daenerys or potentially all the Targaryens, but Daenerys and the dragons have some sort of emotional link, right? So that plus the idea
Yeah.
that dragon's supposed to be intelligent, I think it's not unreasonable that he knew what the chair represented, and that's the thing she wanted, and then that's the thing that killed her. I think I stop at saying he wanted to break the wheel for her.
Right.
Yeah, it's a bit
That's
much.
a like an extra level of like metaphorical intelligence. But I
Yeah.
do like the idea that he knows the significance of the throne
Yeah,
and
it's way
recognizes
better.
that.
It's
Yeah.
just
It is better.
they didn't earn it. That's my problem.
Right.
Is that's the best interpretation in terms of it being a good story point, but like they didn't earn it. They didn't show us, imagine if after Daenerys has Drogon burn the entire city, that at the beginning of this finale Drogon's depressed.
Right.
because he understands what he did,
Yeah.
and maybe there's some line.
Yeah.
He has some line about that, just to set up this idea that he's emotionally intelligent.
He was sleeping in the
Yeah.
snow. Like,
That's
could
cute.
that have anything to do with it? I don't know.
Well, that's the
That's
class.
weird.
You know what we say when we feeling depressed, right? You say you feel blue, or you feel like a dragon in the snow, right? So
I feel like a
that's
dragon curled up sleeping in the snow.
yeah,
Was
that's a
it
classic
snow?
line.
Was it snow or was it ashes?
I think it was snow for no
Looked
apparent
like snow to
reason.
me.
So winter
Yeah.
actually
Well,
did come to the south.
it has to. It always had
Yeah.
to.
Because it seemed like winter was already not a
They
concern.
showed a green plant growing north of
Yeah,
the
they
wall,
did.
and I was like, "You
Did
gotta be
they?
kidding me!" Yeah.
Oh, I was waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
Final scene.
In the final scene,
right before
yeah.
John rides off into the fucking sunset.
Yeah, with
Oh, I
like
missed it.
just I want to come back to that, but yeah, no, they cut down to a little
That was
green
my whole
like,
thing.
things poking up.
I do want to say real quick though, if dragons are really that smart, which I'm not versed in fantasy, they need to explain why in an earlier season the dragon just like charred some kid. Like there's a scene in Marine where a shepherd shows up with his child burnt to a crisp, saying,
Oh, well, because dragons take what they want. Yeah, that's that whole thing. They do.
Oh, okay. So, like,
They're
just because they feel doesn't mean they aren't not assholes.
Exactly. They're supposed to be as smart as people, basically. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
okay.
they can commit crimes.
So I don't like that. I don't really like dragons, and I think the show did a really intense job early on. This like propaganda campaign of trying to convince America that the show wasn't fantasy and that it wasn't about dragons. But I gotta say, the show's kind of about dragons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't really catch the thing you're talking about. This they were trying to convince people the show wasn't about fantasy.
Yeah, I just feel like early on it was like, no, fantasy, everybody, they just had people convinced, they had me convinced that it's not really fantasy. Like, yeah, there are knights, but it's not like when you've seen them before. And yeah, there are dragon eggs, but the dragons are all gone. And like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
they wanted to dip their toe in the fantasy water, but not dive in.
Yeah, but then they dove right in.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hooked us, and then anyway.
Okay, so dragons, fantasy.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I did see this thing from Railroad about George Railroad Martin
Thank
about just to clarify about the dragons. Like someone said, who would win if the what's the dragon from the Smaug? Or Drogon or something, and he was like, "Yeah, I would like to say that Drogon would win just because it's like my dragon or whatever, but he was like, Smaug can talk, and my dragons aren't really like that smart. So I think the dragons in this story are not intended to be as smart as maybe other dragons in other fantasy stories.
Sure, there's definitely a spectrum.
Drogon is so cute, though.
Oh yeah, and
that scene is really sad.
It is
when he does but it's only sad because like dogs do that kind of like. I feel like we just transfer.
100% it is.
Yeah, I mean it's not sad because it's a dragon doing it. It's sad because we're transferring our emotions from when real pets do it. Which I'm not really making a point about anything. I'm just stating a fact.
No, it's true, but I mean, Drogon is sad. I mean,
well, he also is a war criminal. Now that's a question that's interesting. Is like somebody was,
the smarter he is, the more responsible he is.
Right, and so there's this meme going around called "The Goodest Boys," and it's like this pretend poster for a new show featuring Drogon and Ghost. They're the goodest boys. And then so that was going around. So I replied to it and I said, Drogon just like burned thousands of people. He's a good boy. And then the lady responded with, there are no bad dragons, only bad queens. And then I responded with, well, if he's smart enough to blah 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 the throne burning scene, I think he's smart enough to understand his culpability in the slaughter of thousands of people.
Dracarys.
No, it's a good point. Because I was kind of thinking that what was at stake in your earlier question was really the difference between the way that a viewer might read the scene versus what intent Drogon might have. But you're right, there is more at stake, which is like understanding Drogon's level of intelligence so that we can know how responsible to hold him for what happened at King's Landing, just in the way that you would, a general following orders.
Yeah, exactly. Like imagine that scene in the previous episode, the bells, where it's the scene where Dany's supposed to be making up her mind to actually slaughter
Can we just
everybody.
not say Dan? I hate.
Do you hate that?
I hate it.
I forgot. We're speaking verbally, so I don't have to shorten it for brevity. I could say Daenerys without my fingers. I only like it because typing it out is I'm like, how do I spell it?
I actually feel like that's why Railroad uses it.
Yeah.
Just because like it's irritating to type Daenerys. It's like very very difficult word.
I get it, but it annoys me, and it also feels like, are there any men on the show who have nicknames?
Not shortened versions.
Not shortened versions, like diminutives.
Yeah.
I don't mean like the Onion Knight.
Johnny Snow. Doesn't everybody say Johnny? Little Johnny Snow.
Ty Lannister.
Yeah. Little Ty. Hey, listen. Point taken. Queen Daenerys it is.
Thank you. No.
If I could remember, I was just gonna say, if I could remember her full title, I would totally say it. But it's too long.
Dragons,
Breaker of Chains,
Great Grass Sea,
Wheeler of Wheels.
Yeah.
It's a little high and mighty.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted your point.
Yeah. So my point was, in terms of the building up this scene where Drogon melts the Iron Throne. Like, imagine in the previous episode that she's won the battle. They're ringing the bells, and it's that little shot where Daenerys is sort of deciding to make it personal, as the writers claim that shot is supposed to tell us. And this is when she starts, really mowing everybody down who she doesn't have to, right? Like, imagine if she starts to launch flying with Drogon and he hesitates. Or she says Dracarys and he hesitates. And just one beat of showing he understands what's happening. He's not just like a gun she's shooting, right? Like, he understands what's happening. He's his own intellectual creature, and that one little thing can now be a setup for, oh god, it was one thing when my mom made me, burn all these people, but I believed in her because she's my mom or whatever. But now I have to destroy this throne because I'm not only upset my mom is dead, but I'm upset that I killed these innocent people because I'm a smart intellectual dragon. So
yeah, that would be interesting. I don't know how they would tell us that. I know how they could maybe nod to that.
Yeah, all it has to do is hint at it. It doesn't have to be overt. It's because basically every time she says Dracarys, he burns something. So all they have to do is one time show her saying Dracarys, and he kind of hesitates, and then she says it again, and he finally does it because he's got to obey.
Yeah, but instead they choose to show us nothing of that interaction. We don't see her. We just see the flames, right?
Yeah.
That face
tough.
she makes is the last time we see her, right?
In that episode.
Yeah.
Which I think is very strange. I was reading a review of that last episode, the previous one, that pointed that out, and I do think that's weird. I mean, I think like that's background to why this last one wasn't great. It's just like it is really hard to make such a terrible move like that, and then to somehow like pull it together where like, oh no, actually it was great, and actually the last episode was good after all. Like, they really had nothing. It's like they did finally get Daenerys to talk, and she didn't really have a good story to tell. It was I was really disappointed. I was hoping there would be like some more hesitation or some sense of some sense of like maybe I did go too far.
But they
She was
can't.
just like all
So
in.
yeah. So here's the thing, and this is I think it's a good. It's like I admire the craft of this. I don't necessarily like it as a thing I got from the story, but I admire that they took the main heroine of the show and ultimately made her the main villain of the show. I mean, the Night King was actually no real threat when it came down to it. And she was the
Which is
ultimate she
dumb.
which is dumb, and she was the ultimate
Ah!
villain, which I like just as an exercise, as an intellectual exercise. Like I don't like the social implications of that. I don't like what it did to fans of both genders who identified with this character and liked this character and wanted her to succeed, because I was one of those people. I think it's a sour taste in people's mouth to see her become the villain. But just as an academic thing, I think
Yeah.
that's super
Yeah.
cool. It's super
Yeah.
cool to be like the main villain was this blonde girl we thought was the hero the whole time. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting. I think it's a little bit too fairy tale for Daenerys just to have been really
Hmm.
great and ending up on the throne. Like that doesn't seem very interesting to me.
Yeah, and so it makes. I thought, I knew that if John was going to kill her, leading up to this episode, I'm trying to think, okay, well, how's this all going to play out? I think she has to die. So
Hmm.
what's going to be the reason? And this idea that, well, she's not done. She's going to
Yeah.
do what she did in King's, because that's the
Right.
thing for John. I think I was like, well, what's going to make John have to kill her? And the idea is she's going to keep doing this. Like if she had just stopped here and she was happy at King's Landing, John could have made peace and he wouldn't have been pushed into killing her. But the idea that she's going to keep doing this and she's the only one who knows what's good, and everyone else I love that line, like, yeah, what about the other people who think they know what's right? And she's like, well,
Yeah.
they don't get to choose. I get to
Yeah.
choose because I can burn them.
Yeah, I mean that says a lot. I think the scene with John and Tyrion, man,
Hmm.
Peter Dinklage is as always doing a lot with the
He
writing that
is
he
the whole
gets.
show. It's, like him being cast as that character is almost 50% of why the show was ever good. Like he
Yeah.
really has done a lot from the very beginning.
Yeah, he has been a consistently great character.
Hmm.
Like really, really interesting. And he's almost always what he believes is the right thing.
Hmm.
Is what the viewer should believe, with the big exception being the thing with Visera, with
Varys.
Varys,
Hmm.
yeah, where like
Varys, is that how you pronounce it?
Viserion, yeah.
Oh,
I
nobody
say
knows. I got to
Varys.
hear Railroad say it because I just found it from him. It's Dothraki. So I don't know how you're supposed to say. There's like a different. There's a way on the audiobook. There's how they say it in the show, and then
Oh,
there's how
interesting.
Railroad says it. And it's like who even fucking knows what the anyway. The point is like I've heard both.
They're also
Okay.
called laser swords.
I was just gonna throw in on Daenerys. Or Daenerys or whatever, that that I totally agree that academically, I have no problem with the idea of the storyline
Hmm.
that she turns evil. Like it's like Shakespearean in a way. Like it could
Hmm.
be really dramatic. I think the problem was the characterization and how they got there and the
Hmm.
way they played it out. Like, I think if they made it interesting, you can still have a great character that you love who turns around and commits genocide, and you can still, I mean, it's weird, but I think a lot of people like characters who do horrible things in
Hmm.
stories. And I don't think that has to mean that you don't like Daenerys, or you're not going to name your
Well, but
baby Khaleesi or something like.
I think
To me,
there's
like it's
I want to
it's
split
still
hairs
okay.
there and say I think there's a difference between an anti-hero and a morally ambiguous character or an amoral character, and then the actual villain of the show.
Oh, I agree.
And I don't know a lot of examples where a good person who is almost they're is basic close to being a protagonist, at least one of the main characters, obviously, becomes the actual villain. Now, there's a similar parallel with Breaking Bad.
I was just about to say Breaking
but
Bad.
but I think his, and this is goes to what Justin just said, is his he went from an amoral character to a villain over several seasons,
Right.
and it
True.
worked because
Yeah.
we saw step by step, we were along with him step by step, understanding each choice he made to go to the dark side. We knew, we sort of understood why. And I think that's the thing you didn't get with Daenerys, is she was pretty much still going to be able to end the show being a hero, except for like the last few episodes, you
Yeah.
know. And so
Yeah. It's a
that's
bad
where,
call.
yeah, and that's where it was like, oh, that's why it feels like all of a sudden she's just the even though there's
Yeah.
been this progression, you know. And I think that's another thing that was interesting that I liked, is Tyrion's line of, you know, it was foolish of me to think I could change her, you know, I'm paraphrasing. And I find that line really interesting in the finale, because that was a big reason I was upset with how the season was going, was because when the Mad Queen was becoming self-evident, was because I thought the whole point of the show, or Daenerys' storyline, was here's this person who's fated to be a tyrant. She's got it in her blood. She's got the, you know, heir of the crown or whatever. And by a twist of fate, by this outcast Lannister who's an immoral person, he comes and can counsel her, and I thought the whole point was we were gonna, you know, she's gonna pull her back just enough to not make her that tyrant, you know.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was great for my own sense of closure that Tyrion was able to say, sorry Claude, you're wrong. It was foolish of me to think I could even do it, and therefore foolish of you to believe that was even the case. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it makes his arrogance part of his character flaw, you know?
Yeah, there's a version of the story that, like the where everything right up until the finale could have been the
Mm-hmm.
same, but then in the finale, Daenerys confronts what she's just done and
Mm-hmm.
says, "This isn't who I want to be. This is terrible. This is
Mm-hmm.
carnage. I'm going to go back to Marine and I'm going to preside over the liberated Slaver's Bay. Um, and I'm not going to aspire to the Iron Throne."
Mm-hmm.
And that is like the only thing. And I tried so hard to give the show the benefit of the doubt this season, with a few things where it seems, and we talked about this earlier in this season, where there were some things where it seemed all but inevitable that X was what they were going to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, yeah, but maybe this could happen and they could still pull out Y. And none of
No.
those came to fruition. I wanted them to prove me wrong, to prove everybody's assumptions wrong, and they
Mm-hmm.
just didn't do that. Except one notable exception: the goodbye with Ghost.
Ghost. Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I'm upset about that, because it's one of those weird things where they sort of spoiled the moment, because the
Yeah.
previous episode, when he didn't say a proper goodbye, everyone was like, this is bullshit. Why wouldn't they spend the CG budget to have him say goodbye to Ghost? It deserves it, blah blah blah. And so when they get reunited, and it's a great moment that should be awesome, but it's like, yeah, but I have this negative feeling that goes with this now. So it's like, I felt robbed of, like, I really wish they could have, like, handled it better, to where,
Yeah.
you could just, because I feel like, well, you don't deserve it because you pissed me off in the other episode.
It's almost like they didn't bother to do a proper goodbye because they knew he
Yeah,
was going to come back.
exactly.
Like,
Which I don't fault them for knowing. Well, the fans will get what they want ultimately, but I
yeah.
just, but I fault them for not keeping that expectation.
And it doesn't make sense for the characters either. Like, after
Yeah,
all that time, Jon Snow would do more than like a little nod.
yeah.
Yeah, but the reunion also wasn't very thorough. But I do like.
It was better than the goodbye.
I mean, but that's all you
Yeah.
needed. I mean, it's just a quick pet, and actually, it's a better, like, I'd rather him. It's a more positive moment of being reunited forever versus petting him to say goodbye, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's they could have blocked the scene better. Maybe I don't know. They just made it seem like, well, John can't really get over to Ghost or something. I don't know what, but I think they could have set that up a bit better. But it was nice, yeah. It was nice that they did that a little bit.
But it was just like my only prediction, my only like wishful thinking prediction that actually came true this season. Like it wasn't a good goodbye because we're gonna see him again.
We'll see Ghost again.
Oh, so that was your theory. Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
Nice.
I did like that, though I did not love that this was the closing scene. The way that they did it, but I do like that final note is that he's going off to be a free folk, one of the free folk.
King of the Wild Folk. Yeah.
Okay. So I just got to cut in. This is a question for you. Do you can you tell me what you think about what happened there? Because, like, honestly, I was
so
totally
basically,
confused.
you talking about with John going to the Night's Watch?
Yeah, so okay, here's the deal, right? As I understand it, like, he was in prison because he killed Daenerys, right? And Grey Worm was holding him.
Grey Worm, the warden. Jeez, man. They saved all his dialogue for the worst possible scenes he would be in. I'm like, dude, asshole! Like, you're blocking progress in this whole storyline. Ugh.
Aww.
Yeah.
But he's progressed so far with his common tongue.
Common tongue is really good.
Did Son write him a little English guide?
There it is.
Okay. So, and then they negotiate with Grey Worm, and he agrees to just let Tyrion go and let Jon Snow go to the Night's Watch.
He's sent it to the Night's Watch
for life, right? That's the idea. Okay. Yep. So far so good. So he can't be king. All that. Fuck that.
There's a 4-letter word that solves this whole problem for you, but I'll let you finish your tea up.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure, like, I'm following here, because, like, I agree.
Efficiency is not 4 letters.
I agree with it.
Good writing is not 4 letters.
I agree with what the end point is, but I'm just confused about how we're getting there. So he goes there, right? And we see him arrive. So, I mean, okay, when I have to back up a little bit, when the White Walkers attacked, presumably, the Night's Watch was basically just, I mean, we saw Dolorous Ed killed, and, we can presume that, I mean, there were like 25 left. I mean, it was ridiculous. So I think we can assume that, they're pretty much all dead. If any are left, there's 2 of them or something, maybe. So who would even be waiting there? But then mysteriously, Tormund is waiting there when he had gone north. We belong north of the wall. Blah blah blah.
Yep.
And Ghost is there. There's no one there that I can tell that has anything to do with the Night's Watch.
No.
Okay. And then he just walks with him to the north. Okay, so that's what happens, right?
Yep.
So, okay, like, Like, I don't get...
So, 4-letter word.
So, what's a 4-letter word that helps?
Bran.
Okay.
So
say more.
Bran knows there's no more Night Watch. He just basically tricked Grey Worm into thinking Grey Worm into thinking John was going to be punished.
Grey Worm got duped. The end.
End. Yeah. Because listen, John's the place that John was most happiest was when he was in the Wild North. And Bran knows that. So Bran orchestrated John to go King of the Wildlings.
I'm sorry, are you talking about the Three-Eyed Raven? King Three-Eyed Raven?
The Broken? King Three-Eyed Raven? Bran the Broken?
Yeah, Bran the Broken, first of his name. Three-Eyed
Long
Raven.
may he reign.
Of the King of the Andals and First Men.
Yeah, okay. So basically that's the answer to the question is...
I didn't think it was supposed to be a trick. I guess I didn't catch that. Okay.
I didn't quite...
Because there is no... That's why when you get to the Night Watch...
I got a treaty for
Well, listen. Like, Grey Worm left anyway. He went to Noth or whatever, where Missandei was from.
Right.
So, like, Bran just needed to play as the new king. He just needs to placate him for like 20 minutes so he could get on his ship and leave. Honestly, the real question is why didn't he the real question is like why didn't Bran just pretend all this a bit more and not even have Jon go north, right? He could have just not even made that ruse. But the reason I think is because he knows that's where Jon belongs. The sad fucking king of the sad place. I mean, Jon, he's the most emo character ever in the history of characters. It's so weird.
King beyond the wall.
He almost like never does anything. Like what was his most heroic moment? I don't even know anymore. Like he's such a strange character.
You don't remember? It was hold on.
Yeah, I'm
waiting.
waiting.
He killed the Night King. Oh wait.
Oh no. I remember when he came back from the dead. Oh, so a woman did that for him. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, like I don't know. It
was that time when he won the Battle of the Bastards. Oh yeah, that wasn't.
Oh no.
Okay, well,
that's when Sansa and her little.
He can go be with
No, hold on. He did something.
It's almost like that theme of Jon Snow is like, hey men, sometimes you can be a beta male, like hey.
Oh yeah, maybe it's the cock. Why not?
We hear that.
Let it happen. Things will work out for you.
Yeah.
What I'll say about him though is that he wants to be a really great follower. He is somebody who just wants a good cause, and he has not had a lot of luck with that, with finding a nice good cause. He was a really good supporter of the Lord Commander until the mutiny, and he avenged the mutiny. That is probably his biggest moment of courage.
Yeah. Not in the book, by the way. Just to take that away a little bit.
But then I think he went out on a limb getting Daenerys Stormborn, first of her name, Queen of the Andals and the First Men, Breaker of Chains, Khaleesi the Great Grass Seed, Mother of Dragons, the Unburnt. Getting her to come north to defeat the army of the dead. I think he gets
heroic.
He let the wildlings through the wall.
Yeah,
I feel like that was his major act in terms of the first.
Is that heroic?
Well,
isn't it?
I don't know. Now we're getting into the terrain.
Wait, why isn't it heroic? Are you saying just because he needed help?
I mean, is being a good diplomat heroism?
Well, I mean, he saved them.
What's more heroic than knowing when you need help?
Like, what?
I don't know. There should be a movie that explains that to me.
It doesn't count as heroic because it's
a great tagline.
So, like, a decision as
I'm saying,
heroic? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying in this classic mythological archetype kind of idea of what a hero is. What's an action where you're sacrificing yourself for a greater good or cause that you can incur some sort of pain or suffering from, but you do it anyway, showing courage. Sort of that idea of what a hero is, showing courage in the face of danger.
I guess Hardhome too. Also not in the book.
Okay.
Yeah. Hardhome is cool.
I mean, again, academically, I think Jon is drawn as a super interesting character. It's just he's not the hero everyone thought he was going to be.
Well, he's boring, and that's what I think is really interesting about.
I think that is okay with me in the end. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No.
Well, no, I was just gonna say I think making Jon boring is one of the remaining vestiges of when the show was good. Like, there's no way Ned Stark is gonna get his head cut off. There must be a way around this. Nope, he really got his head cut off. Okay, well, Rob is really boring, but he's Ned Stark's heir. This is gonna be it. Oops, Red Wedding. And so like I like that Jon.
So they killed all the classic heroes off, and we were just left with Jon Snow.
Yeah, and then Jon doesn't sit on the throne. I love that Jon doesn't sit on the throne.
Yep.
I beautiful hair. He's prettier than both of my daughters.
I was so sure he was going to.
But I'm really so glad that
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm glad Daenerys didn't sit on the throne, which I know is not a super popular. I mean, even the way that she was at the beginning of the season, I just think that's too obvious of an answer.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yep. No, I like the main idea of the ending, that this whole dynasty, this whole phase of the world and the politics has ended and we're in a new era. That was my greatest hope for the show. So like that, in that I'm satisfied. Like I wanted the throne to be destroyed. I was hoping, and I see why they didn't do it now, because they saved the moment for Drogon. But I was hoping, and I probably told you guys this before, that Cersei's backup plan, if the castle ever gotten taken, was she had wildfire stashed around, and that she was going to ignite it and go up in a blaze of glory and take the throne with her. I thought, like, oh man, that'd be the best way for her to go out. But I see they wanted the dragon to have the metaphor.
That totally makes sense. But I agree with you, because in the Battle of the Blackwater episode, we see that she's there with the poison. She's not going to be taken by her. So I was
Cersei was a huge disappointment this whole season. Obviously, like, she didn't even have a part to play in this episode.
She didn't do really anything, and they were even saying, people were picking apart little things like, what's her assistant guy's name?
Qyburn.
Yeah, so he's the one who created the scorpions, right? The big arrow shooting things that kill the dragons.
Supposedly.
And that was a huge deal. And people were like, she didn't even reprimand him because that was their big defense against the dragons, and it didn't. And he's just like, oh, they've all been destroyed. So what are we gonna do? And her character was just so weird the entire season. And then it's funny, people were like, when Tyrion goes to the map room and he finds where Jaime and Cersei were, buried under rubble, and it was like, wow, they were just too far to the right. If they were 10 paces to the right, they wouldn't have even died. And then I saw that on Twitter, and then my joke response was like, yeah, they weren't far left enough. They should have supported Medicare for all. There you go, bring in political. But I mean, it's that kind of stuff that really sucks, where it's like you have to have the logistics of Tyrion able to find their bodies, because I love that he went to look for his brother and sister. It makes total sense. And it confirms that they're dead for the audience. I love that whole thing. But the logistics of then the room can't be completely destroyed, or else you'll never find them. Right. But then if it's not completely destroyed, then they're just the wrong place. It's so crappy.
Yeah, I was really disappointed with their handling of Cersei's character over the last season and a half. And I just, while we're, okay, there's one thing I want to say, and then a thing I want to ask you about. So the one thing is, a lot of people have been talking about how shitty this last season has been, but last season sucked too. And that's a definite lost kind of syndrome of people just remembering how shitty the last season is and not thinking about how the penultimate was already paving the way for that. And I feel that way with Cersei. She was such an interesting character, super complex, and then they just ironed her out and ruined her. And the whole thing with Euron is just such a slap in the face to female viewers, way more of a slap in the face than Daenerys's, turning out to be the Mad Queen. Horrible.
What do you mean exactly?
Just giving her this whole story, she's pregnant with Jaime's baby. Pregnancy, whenever a woman gets pregnant on a show, I'm like, okay, this is a red flag for me. Let's just wait for this character to go completely.
I was so sure Daenerys would be pregnant before the end of the show. I was wrong.
No,
anyway.
only when the sun rises in the west.
I didn't think that was true. I thought the whole point of the prophecies it wouldn't be true.
George R.R. Martin likes prophecies to be true sometimes, but definitely not all the time.
Yeah. So speaking of, I wonder if he's going to pay off the Valancourt.
I think he'll pay off the Valancourt, but yeah, I don't.
Because she didn't kill Arya, didn't kill some green eyes.
I mean, no, just like the little brother. Your little brother will
that's right.
Hands
that's the
around
thing.
your throat, and they took it out of the scene in the show. So I feel like the show already, when they showed that flashback, committed to we don't care about the Valancourt. We're not gonna bother worrying about how to fulfill that. we got enough shit to try to
Yeah.
like pull together.
Yeah.
We are not putting in a Valonqar prophecy. Fuck it.
Oh, I think it's nice. It's generous of you to say that they tried.
They what did I say they tried?
To pay things off.
Oh. Okay, right. Yeah, sick burn. Nice. Sorry. It's like, did I imply they tried?
No,
yeah,
not the Valonqar, but just things in general.
Yeah. I won't say that
and
they succeeded.
Yeah, the whole thing with Euron was just really irritating. He sucked. He was terrible. I don't understand why.
So you're saying the baby plot, like
baby
the whole,
plot
the
was
whole
horrible,
thing of like,
and then just like they just stopped developing her. You know, we
she had nothing to do
anymore.
this season.
Yeah.
She was just standing around, like, and there were multiple episodes with nothing in King's Landing at all. I mean, in general, King's Landing was bad. Like, King's Landing used to be an interesting place with a lot of interesting characters, and they would play off of each other. None of that. It was just like this flat.
So
like,
yeah,
basically there's Cersei and her underlings, and they're just standing around waiting to die. Like, there was nothing else happening.
They had no like actionable plot to do. One of the most interesting articles I've read about the difference in writing quality over the seasons basically sums up this idea between sociological storytelling and like more traditional personal storytelling, which most narratives are, which is it's sort of the viewpoint through like a single main character. And this guy was basically illustrating how the beginning of the show, basically when they were on the books, was all sociological storytelling. So it's about how these different groups of people's actions influence each other. And then at the last couple seasons have been the personal stories, particularly this season, the personal storytelling, where it's just about these, and you can see like that means that the characters get more ironed out and things get kind of less complex. And again, the whole thing you're saying, like nothing's happening in King's Landing because we're not concerned about King's Landing as an entity anymore. We're only concerned about these couple of characters that are there, you know. So that to me, I was like, oh, I can send you that to you guys because it was like the most succinct thing of like, oh, this I can believe this is why the writing is different in this way that's really distinct.
Yeah, that's interesting. It makes sense.
Yeah, so like I saw the article. I don't think I actually, maybe I did read the whole thing. God, I don't even remember if I read it or not, but the one thought I had on it, whether I read it or not, is the following. So like what I think is like, I think there's an interesting point there, and that I don't necessarily disagree, but that the books are there was a claim about the books too, right? It wasn't just about the show.
I think the idea was the books are the social storytelling.
Right. So I think the weird thing about that, like I think there's a way in which that's true, but the other thing is the books are point of view based. So there's a lot of points of view, which I think suggests this.
That's the thing, yeah.
Sociological element. But on the other hand, because it's point of view, you really drill down on individual characters in a way that I think the show doesn't convey. Like you get a lot more from the point of view characters, you know, and so like it kind of creates this weird imbalance. Like, for example, Rob is not a point of view character in the books, so you don't really know much about Rob. You don't know much about his marriage. All that stuff is like they added it in, I think, because they thought for a viewer it's going to be weird to not have insight or any sort of development of this character who seemingly should be important. But in the books, no point of view, no insight. Whereas like other characters, you have, you know, 20 chapters per book that's just about their point of view, and you can't help but get pretty deep on a psychological level on the individual. So that's where it seemed like a little bit off to me, like it, because I feel like there is a strong psychological element in the books that isn't in the show, you know. So that's my only like objection to that concept, because I do feel like sometimes the show's character development suffered because they didn't have that point of view thing where you can really know like what a character is thinking.
Hmm.
You know, you get those internal
Yeah.
monologues.
Well, we
Well,
always
that's
know
like
what
a
Jon
book
Snow is
thing.
thinking.
Yeah, exactly. But in that way, it felt like, you know, very psychological, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like the what seems more right to me is that the show is more like that, and not necessarily the books.
Yeah, I think the show is more like that just by virtue of the medium.
Yeah, exactly,
But
exactly.
I
And I'm not
think
sure they were trying to do that, but that's just practically how it comes out when you adapt a story like this in a
yeah.
way that can work on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So, Claude, what do you think of the line about "Ask me in 10 years"?
I love that. It's D&D talking to each other. That was the most meta scene I've ever seen. It's literally them saying, "Hey, is the way we're doing this ending right? I don't know. Ask me in 10 years." I completely think it's the writers talking to each other and basically saying, telling the audience not to judge it right now. Let's see how we look back on this show in 10 years.
Oh
In
no.
10 years.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh boy.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of
Oh no. Let it go, Jack.
Yeah.
Let it
Yep.
go.
Yeah.
I thought about it in relation to something you said earlier in our conversation here, that made me think about, so Bran, with all of the particularities of Bran, that he can't have an heir, that
Yeah.
he's not, uh he's just not, the heir to the throne in any
Mm-hmm.
way. That in a sense, if you look at it that way, she broke the wheel. um and so this idea of, well, let's wait 10 years and see, almost like lets Daenerys off the hook.
Well, you're saying she gets credit for Bran being king somehow?
Well, that
By
she
by
gets credit for laying, basically setting the stage that then ends up. I mean, you can also say, well, then is John seals it, and then Tyrion, but she kind of like wipes the chessboard.
Well, I mean, if you give her any credit, then you have to credit, John. Then you have to credit Tyrion. Then you have to
Yeah,
credit Brent. You have to kind of. I mean, it's a weird thing of, do you give someone credit for something they wanted to do, but not in the way they wanted it done?
well, because I don't
Yeah, I
think that
guess.
I don't think so. I think that's a bogus motivation for her that they slapped on with very little precedent this season. But when he says, "Ask me in 10 years,"
Mm-hmm.
whether it was the right thing to kill her. I mean, how else would we read that other than, well, let's let history decide? I mean, is there any scenario in which it, in 10
Yeah,
years
yeah,
looking
yeah.
back
I
on
think,
this, we
yeah, I
say,
think in the context of the show, I think that's the idea of, let's see how this ruling with Bran being king goes, and if 10, we can only really judge that question after time has passed.
I just think it's pretty obvious. I mean, who, I just, I just don't understand how any thinking person could think like, no, let's let her continue doing this.
Well, these are the same thinking people who led her to that point in the first place, with very little pushback. So I think, I think they've, giving them the benefit of the doubt, they've realized by getting to the point of having to kill her that they made a lot of mistakes along the way, and they don't know what the right thing is to do. So I think it makes sense that they're in this contemplative place of saying, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, because here's the thing: if Bran turns out to be Bran the brutalist or
Bran the
whatever,
Butcher.
yeah, like
Bran the
then
Brutalist. Oh, I love that. No. Bran the Brutalist. He's an architect,
he's an
and all of
architect,
his buildings are.
like concrete and
Sorry.
metal.
Yeah, please go ahead. You were saying?
No, let's talk about art.
Yeah, let's get into
Because
architecture.
because we're not talking about
welcome
art.
to Mr. Architecture
Oh.
Student, the podcast.
Yeah.
Slug her in there.
I know.
Okay, since we're on a slight tangent, I'm sorry. I've actually forgotten what is the context of that line. I don't even remember.
This is
Like when is that line spoken? Who speaks it? What is happening? I'm
What
sorry,
is the line? Who is the line? Where is the line? How
I'm
is
just
the
lost.
line?
Like you're talking about it, and I'm like, I'm not even sure when that happened or what it was referring to. So anyway, could you catch me up? I did see it, but I just saw it, so I've forgotten.
I'm looking at the transcript right now.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's what Jenny said that the question is Tyrion and Jon asking each other, do we do the right thing in killing her?
But
right?
when did that scene happen?
After.
When?
I just wanted to orient my brain of.
I mean, it's the only time they see one another after the stabbing after killing Daenerys has happened.
It's after the stabbing. So is it before the big meeting? It must be.
No,
after
it's after.
that. After that, right? He gets.
Yeah,
released.
all hell,
So
Bran the Broken,
Tyrion-
Lord Tyrion, you'll be my hand.
Tyrion goes in to tell Jon that he's being sent to
when
Wall.
Tyrion goes in to tell him. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, that's when it's like suddenly.
And Jon is like, "Did I?"
And then he says, "Was it right what I did? Yeah, was it right what I did? What we did? It doesn't feel right. Ask me again in 10 years." Yeah.
Okay.
And I just felt like that was the writers. Was it right what we did? This show, how we handled the show, how we handled the finale.
Well, I feel like I think that's an interesting way to read it. That's definitely the way that a writer would read that line. But I think, sick burn on writers. But I didn't read it that way. I read it as like, well, Tyrion doesn't know what to believe because he's seen all these things. Lots of rulers turn bad and whatever.
Yeah.
But he also doesn't think his own judgment is necessarily not reliable.
Right, he's questioning his own judgment. But what in God's name would happen in 10 years that would make you think, you know what, Daenerys, all that Dracarys, that was a good thing. We should have let that continue.
Yeah, but you never know until you know, right? Because he had no idea that Daenerys would ever be capable of doing what she did to King's Landing before the moment she did it, right? So he's at that same moment of, I mean, this is part of his character arc where he can't be sure about something like that, because that's the lesson he learned. Is it was a folly for him to be that confident into what he knew and all that kind of stuff. So I think
for the viewers, it's like, what? But like, I think for Tyrion, it makes sense.
I think he has to be unsure of what the next 10 years could bring. Because again, someone could murder Bran and take over the throne, and it'd be somehow worse. Now I agree with you that it seems hard to say that anything could be worse than someone basically destroying, going from city, country to country, murdering people like as a means to an end without stopping until you rule the world, right? Like that sounds like the worst outcome, and not something someone who just wants to be king of the 7 kingdoms would, or 6 kingdoms, excuse me, Queen Sansa. But so I mean, I agree with you in general that, like, yeah, obviously that seems like Daenerys was the worst threat possible, which makes sense because that needed to be true for the show. She was the worst threat possible. So it would also that should mean that anyone else would be less problematic than her. But I think the point is that he can't believe that. He's at a place where he's just gonna have to wait and see.
Right. Yeah. He can't. He can't know. He can't be certain.
Yeah, if he was sure about that, then he hadn't learned any lessons.
Yeah, I mean, it would be different if there were a character who knew everything and could actually tell him.
Yeah, so Bran can't see the future, right? Is that true or not? Because when
I don't think he can see the future, but the internet certainly seems to think he.
Yeah, because when he explained his powers, he says he knows what happened in the past and he knows what's happening now, and he never says anything about the future. But he has that line, "Why do you think I came all this way?" So and it calls in the question, like,
Yeah, that makes
the
it seem like
difference
he
between
knew.
the present and future, like, because the future becomes the
Yeah.
present very quickly.
Yeah, that's a bad line.
Yeah,
Maybe he just knew like what Tyrion was thinking via the
but
Ravening
no,
Force.
coming
6
this
weeks.
way seems to suggest before I even left Winterfell, I knew I was going to be
Oh
crowned
yeah, I was
king.
thinking just
Yeah.
just
And let's not forget, how long does it take to get from Winterfell to the capital?
How
of
much screen
Westeros?
time do we have? If
it's
we have no
exactly
time,
screen time long.
yeah,
Is it like 4 months?
it's supposed to be several hundred miles. I
Yeah, I
mean,
They
think
tell us in the pilot how long it
I
took.
think maybe it's 2 months,
yeah.
something like
Okay.
that.
All right.
Yeah. I was talking
It's
to
enough.
my friend and how
Distance.
we were talking about how like Daenerys, like when John gets trapped in the ice out in the wild with the Night King and his crew, and he like sends the guy to go run back to the Night's Watch, and however many hours that took, and then they have to send a raven down to the Dragon Cove or whatever it's called, and then
Yeah.
Daenerys has to fly 1,000
Yep.
miles over past the
That
wall.
dragon flies fast.
Woo! Flies fat, doesn't stop for food. Nobody's got to
Woo!
pee. Like
Nope.
she's just gonna sleep on that dragon's back as it's flying. It's just like they were just so far. They were just so unable to really make the logistics work. And it's like
Yeah.
I don't blame them, but it's just really funny.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
I think it shows a shift in the story too because like a lot of earlier story elements involved
Mhm.
characters just wandering in the woods for a whole season.
Yeah.
Like that would be it for them.
Yeah.
Just between places or hiding out or whatever. It's a huge wilderness there and they don't have any mode of transportation like other than of
Mhm.
course a dragon is faster, but still a dragon, shouldn't have
Yeah.
been able to cover. I mean, that was ridiculous.
I
Totally
like that the
ridiculous.
dragon has little like jets in his mouth, you know? When he opens his mouth, you see like the little holes where the fire comes
Oh
out.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
It's subtle.
Nice.
yeah. I don't know if they showed that before. I don't remember seeing that before, but I might have forgotten.
I think you just didn't notice.
So,
Maybe.
what do you guys think about the respective characters' ends? So, we got the main Stark kids. So, what do you guys think about Arya and Sansa and John?
I feel like Sansa's a thumbs up for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sansa was appropriate, I think.
Arya, she obviously peaked when she killed the Night King, and it was clear that that was going to be her peak. I mean, she saved the species from existential threat.
Mhm.
But she's just been in kind of a holding pattern.
Yeah, she didn't really have much to do
Since
after
then.
that, which
Well,
I'm
and
not surprised, but
they made it seem like she was gonna, kill
kill
Dany
Daenerys.
because
Yeah,
of the personal hell she witnessed down in King's
yeah.
Landing, and then she came and she was just like nothing. There was just no like I'm gonna kill her. John and was like no, I'll handle it.
No,
None of that. None of she's gone
it
too
doesn't even seem like she
far.
was thinking
This is
about
the
it.
problem with ruling power like this, right? You just like question. You don't question it. And she's our queen, so whatever. Like she can just do what she wants. That's why democracy is better. So
Yeah, I half liked her scene with the Hound as they're entering the Red Keep,
yeah,
and he says, you don't end up like me. I half like that because I always have liked the two of them,
yes,
but part of me feels like it's just another walk back of a female character becoming like really interesting and strong and self-assured.
hmm
Like it had never occurred to her in all of this like training
yeah.
wisdom that like revenge
You know,
could like eat you from the
I
inside.
what I li- I agree with you. I kind of half liked it. What I like, I don't think they really earned that turn that she makes in that scene so quickly. But I do like the idea that if this scene was in a book or something, they could really expand it out. Like he cares about nothing but this vengeance with his brother. They're in this crumbling castle that's about to fall down on them any second now, and she's right there with them. And I like the idea that she kind of looks around and says there's more to life than this. and I don't have to end up like you. I actually do have a choice, and I like it. So that idea married with what they do at the end, where it's not that she just goes off to explore the West, which I think is a cool idea, but that she sort of, people are making like Christopher Columbus jokes about her. She's going to go off and like colonize the world or something. But this idea that like she's young, right? And her experience as an assassin was a means to an end, and like she doesn't have to actually be an assassin forever. That's not the greatest thing she'll ever do. There's other mysteries out there, and so to me, I like her ending for that. And so I like that turn where he says, "You don't have to end up like me," because I like the idea that she's like, it's almost like her leveling up past. Like she was a kid who didn't want to be the lady of the house. She wanted to go out and find adventure, and she got that, and that's what she reconnected to, that there was actually more adventure out there, and that's what she would prefer over just this blind vengeance. She would actually prefer, to keep learning and living and exploring. And I'm like, that's cool. I give that a thumbs up.
Yeah, hearing you say that, I feel like you would write a better version because it's like it's
Am
not
I
just,
putting my own thoughts too much into it?
I do think the way you spelled it out sounded better than the way it came across to me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they underwrite like everything at this point in the show, so I feel like it's like you get to like fill in, and if you could do a good job, you could kind of make it sound
It's
like it works.
write your own ending, like like what toppings do you want to put? They give you the base, it's like Chipotle. They give you tortilla. You choose what you want to put on top.
Oh, is tonight's episode brought to you by Chipotle?
It is now. I hope. Where's that Chipotle check?
This is like hundreds of cents worth of free promotion.
That's like $1.
No, I like that idea because I like the idea that her training at Bravos was not just to become an assassin, but
Yeah.
it was like, I'm going to learn how to do that. I'm going to learn how to master this specialized domain,
Yeah.
And she doesn't go back to Bravos to like, give herself to the faceless king. What is it?
Many-faced God.
Many-faced God. Not the faceless king.
That's right.
That's totally different. But it's also like so we have been rewatching the series. We were intending to get caught up before this.
That was the idea. We got halfway through season 6.
So
okay, it's not bad.
That's not great.
Do you still are you going to keep going, or are you over it now?
I was planning on it. Just seems weird to leave it there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess
didn't hate the ending that much.
Yeah.
Well, because it felt like we were the part of the series that we've been watching has had some connections, and it's like I remember when we started watching this past season, I was like, who is Thoros of Mir? Like I completely forgotten about that whole storyline.
Yeah.
And then they like come back, or I guess Thoros of Mir didn't come back.
Beric Dondarrion
came back, but I didn't remember like who are these people they're talking about? Who's this guy? So it is interesting, and it may give me an increased appreciation of some of what happened this season. But why did I bring this up?
I think it's just getting to like to me, season 6 was the last one where there was some really good stuff in there. It also is showing signs that it's kind of heading in a not great direction in terms of too much efficiency and just some very muddled storylines, but there are some great moments. So I don't know, it just seems a shame to just abandon it completely because this episode happened. Like, fuck you, you can't make me not watch something.
They tried.
I know, and it was a good try. But yeah, if we stop watching, they win, and I don't want them to win. So
if they change your behavior, yep, that's
exactly. I'm gonna watch their show to spite them.
Yeah, there's some sort of TV terrorists or something.
Exactly.
It's not far off because I think people have felt terrorized is too strong a word, but emotionally manipulated, with a lot of things that happened this season and where characters ended up.
Yeah, so So yeah, and my thought about Arya before you sold it was like it just felt weak and underdeveloped to me.
Yeah.
It just seemed like, well, okay, so they didn't do the thing that we talked about, which was like she shows up at Gendry's door and
Oh,
storms
I'm
in
so
and is
glad
like,
that didn't
I
happen.
want to be your lady after all. Like, okay, like luckily we didn't get that, but
Yeah.
so that would have been like definitely worse. And this wasn't horrible. Like I was okay with it, but it just seemed kind of vague and like we don't really have a specific plan for Arya's
Mm-hmm.
story. So how about you just sail away somewhere?
Yeah.
Like it just, I don't know, it just seemed a bit like weak to me as an endpoint, you know, especially because like, yeah, after killing the Night King, like she didn't really have a lot to do, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
disappointing. Certainly more than Cersei, but yeah, I think that ending was like middle of the road for me. It was like underdeveloped, but definitely not the worst.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I had to spend some time thinking about how her ending, what it really meant. Because I thought it was really nice how they kept cross cutting between the ending, John's ending being surrounded by the wildlings and being, basically going to be the king of the wildlings, Sansa, queen of the north, being lauded by these people around her. And then you have, Arya on the ship, people around her aren't like serving her, but there's other people around her and she's off on this new adventure. And so I was just thinking about all the parallels there, and how each character more or less got exactly what they wanted when the show first started. But so yeah, I was thinking about Arya and what it really meant for her to go off to west of Westeros. And I was like, oh, I see. Her thing was about adventure. She always wanted adventure. Now she actually gets to see the greatest adventure. I love that line about, that's where the maps stop, so it's just who knows what's out there. And the idea that she's super capable, right? And so she has these skills to where like I'm, don't screw with her. Whoever lives west of
Right.
Westeros, better watch their step. So I was like trying to think of that, and then the scene with Clegane and all that. So I was like, okay, that's what he meant. That's what he meant. You don't have to spend
Right.
the rest of your life in this like one track mind murder pursuit. You can go do other things. And so and that was like that's what she got from that. That like, oh shit, there's other things to do in life. So I was like, okay, it's a quick turn in that scene, but I buy again. I buy their goals, generally speaking, what they are trying to do. I don't think is like the worst ideas. It's usually just the execution that's pretty rough.
yeah.
Yeah. So, if you were to identify one thing that you wanted to see happen in the series that didn't happen, just like
That
that
didn't
one,
happen. So my
yeah,
biggest
big list.
complaint on the show is the Night King. I
Hmm.
think that was the
Ah,
most underwhelming thing. I think, and again, it's this weird academic thing of where they sort of played this like red herring slash three card Monty thing where we thought the Night King was the biggest threat in the show, and it turned out to be Daenerys, and it was the person we weren't looking at the whole time, sort of. And then the person we were looking at, the Night King, almost presented the least threat, in a way. So there's this thing that I like that's just interesting because it's different, but I don't. It's not actually satisfying. I would rather the Night King had been a real fleshed out character who had a real goal and motivation that we could really understand, and that he had a plan. He was smarter than what it seemed like he was, or where he turned out to be. That I just wish that somehow he could have won in a way. Like, yes, Ari, I wanted you to stab me because like I want to be put out of my fucking misery. I'm an undead
Yeah.
fucking monster. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, that's a
like this
thought.
is something like I kind of wanted him to have for him to have set up these chess pieces in a way to where even his death isn't his death is not like the thing he wants least.
Right.
And I wish there was more interaction with him and a sort of battle of minds and will with Bran. I wanted more for the three-eyed raven to have some sort of impact on the Night King and vice versa. I like that Arya is the one who killed him. I think that makes sense. I don't like the execution of just the plot, just the layout of like she's in the library sneaking past people. Yeah, she's a great
Ugh.
sneak. That's awesome. And then like, how does she defeat the Night King? Oh, she sneaked him all right. You know, she snuck right past. I just feel like that was like her greatest power was her sneakiness. You know, so it's just really
Yeah,
weird.
it's
That's
all
really
that
weird.
time
Like,
studying cats.
yeah, she's just like sneak, sneak, sneak.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it was like a cat pounce. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, wah!
Yeah.
beware the cats. Um,
What's his name would have been so proud?
Syria Pharrell.
Serial Pharrell.
Yeah.
the
Yeah, I
Bravos
agree.
guy.
The
Yeah, the
Bravos
Bravos
guy.
Yeah,
The
guy.
water
yeah, he's great.
dancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Great character from season 1 who has about 3 scenes. Like,
mhm.
yeah,
He's the best.
the
He's
show
great.
could do a lot with a little back then. It really
Yeah.
feels like an interesting character just from that. And yeah, I wish that show could have stayed alive.
Yeah. But so that's my biggest complaint, really, probably of the whole show is the Night King not being that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's
Um,
valid.
yeah,
Definitely. I expected more from that as well.
yeah, and then in terms of the finale specifically, probably, um, um, yeah, I mean, you know, I didn't like that Forest. I guess it was was that last episode or the beginning of this
Yeah.
one? I forget.
Yeah,
But
last episode.
but yeah, I'm happy where John ended up. I think it makes sense. He goes with the wildlings, Sansa things. I kind of
Yeah.
like this whole idea of everyone saying I to agree that Bran is the will be king, and then Sansa's like, hold up, wait a minute. If we're just like starting a new status quo, I'm just gonna throw in some rules here. How about we get our own kingdom, and that'll be cool. And so everyone's like, yeah, that's fine. And I feel like the other lords missed a mistake of being like,
Yeah.
"Damn it! If
Oh,
I'd known
shit.
we could have succeeded, I would have
That
said
was
something."
easy.
Yeah, well, you got it's a good point because you've got at that table Yara representing the Iron Islands
Mm-hmm.
and Dorny McDorner.
Dorny McDornerson, the Prince of Dorne.
And it's you know they are not they're not really part of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, yeah. I would think they would want to be independent as much as Sansa did or the North does, because they were like quasi-independent anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a bit weird, but I think they also like, yeah, it's this thing where they kind of don't matter that much in the overall story, and I feel like they wanted to give Sansa that moment to stand out, and I just have like these other people like, oh yeah, me too, yeah, I want to do this, like,
yeah,
I don't know.
They don't want to just disband the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, it's already bad enough that Bran only gets to be ruler of 6 kingdoms.
6 kingdoms, yeah.
Like, I'm king of 2 kingdoms. Like, not that impressive.
Yeah. It loses something.
Yeah.
When you get to that point.
Yeah, the little flower or piece of plant you see growing out north of the wall. I did catch that. I just forgot about it. But I guess I didn't really think about what that was supposed to mean. I just thought, oh yeah, some grass sticking up. Who cares?
Winter was 3 months.
This is like, yeah.
It's actually just like the normal length.
That's just
of
bullshit.
But what I'm confused about is this area is always cold and snowy.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean it's not the same, don't really, unless they're literally saying like, no, this whole ice region is gonna recede.
It's gonna be green now. Maybe they mean that. I don't fucking know. Because like now that the Night King's been killed, like maybe winter will never come again.
Oh, good.
Oh, God.
Winter isn't coming anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
that's our new words.
Yeah. I was hoping there'd be a line of like, spring is here, but I guess they just showed it visually.
Yeah. I think that's all you get. But that it is weird. I didn't take it that far, but I did think, like, I felt like they wanted to end on that, but they didn't want to cut to like, 2 years later or something.
Mm-hmm.
because it
The
would have
wildlings
been
just
too
like
far.
sweating and fanning
Yeah,
themselves.
woo!
Like, I got some vapors.
Well, I do declare. I never thought the North could get this hot.
I always depend on the kindness of wildlings.
Be a sweetheart and fetch me some tea.
Sweet tea. Okay, so let's talk about the scene when we got like the next day on Game of Thrones when like Tyrion's, preparing for the meeting of the round table or whatever.
Small council meeting,
Yeah, and it's just like
yeah.
this weird like comedy where it's about how banal everything is and how boring it is and how after everything we've gone through for 8 seasons and everything we just went through with this season, like it all came down to rearranging chairs and like this is his
Yeah.
life from now on, and like I didn't know how to take that. I didn't know what
Tyrion
to.
needs to put a spear through Bronn's heart. Like that, Bronn. Get rid of Bronn.
Yeah, I can't believe that Bronn was just admitted, not only like given Highgarden, but put on the small council. Like,
Oh yeah,
how the fuck did he earn that shit? That's
I'm
because of some
confused.
deal he made at like
With the
at the
dead
threat of
person?
death. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
fuck that.
I didn't. I thought the show should have just like lost track of him. Like I was really confused when he came back, and I was just like, I don't know who wanted you back. Like I don't.
I know there are fans that love Bronn.
Yeah, I
Those
liked him
people.
too a long time ago, but
Yeah,
like
I agree.
it
That's
was
the
just.
problem with TV shows these days. I think like sometimes you have a character that you can like, and then like fans latch on, and then they just use them to the point where they're actually like,
Yeah, it
a
was
dead
weird
horse
to
they're
to
beating.
hit, and it was this weird sort of undeserved thing because I feel like a character like him, you like when they win out in the end, um, because they've been stepped on their whole lives or whatever. They've had to scrape, and finally this guy's in the lap of luxury. But like the way he got it was so crappy that I'm not
Yeah,
actually happy that he has all this power and status now.
yeah,
So it was kind of
Yeah.
weird.
I mean, it was one thing when he was getting that status and power by, killing people that the audience felt like,
Yes.
were in the wrong, but
He's just playing the
yeah.
game. He's just doing the thing. But
Right. And he is playing the game, and he continued to play the game, and that's why I
yeah.
feel like he should have been punished the way that other people who,
hmm But he's a man.
yeah, but I mean
I'm
Jamie
just kidding.
dies in the end. No, I mean I know
Yeah,
he did,
but
but
he died in the best place possible, though, right? He died with
ugh,
his loved
vomit.
one. That's the thing
Vomit.
about Jamie. And let's talk about Jamie's ending and this whole like I don't want to overread into things, but this whole like white privilege thing, where like I really didn't appreciate like that Jamie's legacy was written by a woman. The woman he left, the woman he slept with once and didn't call again, left her for another woman who was evil, and then Brienne like has to like chooses to like write this. I didn't read all the
Yeah.
words, but this whitewashing his legacy. I don't think she wrote anything horrible, and she whitewashed the end. He died protecting his queen. Yeah, that he slept with. That it was his sister, and they murdered people to get. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
weird. It was just an extra weird insult. Like starting with the thing when he left her, and she's out in the cold, and why is this strong woman who's been this strong character this entire time this weak crybaby now? Not that emotions or anything bad, but just in terms of how she was written. And then like on top of that, she's the one who has to like who takes it upon herself to like absolve him of all of his sins. He gets absolved. Why does he get absolved in history? And
Yeah.
it's so weird. And I remember somebody on Twitter said all she should have written was Jamie knighted the first woman as a knight, and then that's it, and then turn the page, and then Brienne starts writing her own story, and I'm like, that's more palatable to me. I just didn't understand like why make her not care how she was treated so much that she would whitewash this positive legacy for him. For a person who, why did he deserve that legacy?
Yeah, that scene is odd. Actually, I feel really I'm really confused by what the writers did with Jamie this season. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and what they did with Brienne by extension. Like, the scene where Jamie knights Brienne is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they're telling us this is who Jamie is.
Yep.
And I feel like throughout this series, they've had these moments where they've said, this is who Jamie is. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's like Jamie's the person who's going to push a child out a window. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they're saying, no, actually, Jamie. And it's, for me, that is actually more. I don't know what the word is, but worse than what they did with Daenerys' transformation and then retransformation, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you've made Jamie into this really fascinating, really wonderful character that people are gonna love, and he's that kind of guy who, you know, um, can't believe that he's a good person,
I'm just
right?
gonna say
Mm-hmm.
it. He's basically the Sawyer of
Yeah, I was gonna get there.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
Game of
Sawyer.
Thrones. Anyway,
he's definitely Sawyer, but it's he in the end, that's not Sawyer's final note
not at all. No,
The
because
big
no.
that's
difference
not
being,
what shows do.
well, the big difference being Sawyer became the the positive version of his character because he had both sides the whole time, as Jamie did too. He leaned into the positive side after season 5 and after the little floor stuff, and he becomes the hero that he always knew he could be after that, and stays that way. He doesn't continue to do quasi evil things after that. You know what I mean? Like there's a point where Sawyer's the bad boy, and then he turns a page and he's not anymore. And I feel like with Jamie, they kept flip flopping that the whole time, and therefore the character arc doesn't really make sense. And again, like if you flip the scene around when he tells Brienne he's leaving because he's always and this is the other thing, both Tyrion and Jamie get the chance to rattle off all they're the only characters who rattle off all their crimes and immoralities and yet are not punished for them. It's so weird to be like, I did this bad thing and I did this bad thing and I did this bad thing, and then it's kind of like, well, yeah, but we're not going to punish you for it even though you acknowledge your crimes. It's super weird. But yeah, I mean, imagine the scene with Jamie and Brienne where it's like, you know she makes him leave, or something.
Right, go
You
save your
you
sister.
go save her, blah blah blah. He's like, no, I want to stay, blah blah. Whatever. Make it a little, flip it a little bit. So then when she does end up writing his legacy,
Right.
it's in the same vein of her wanting to remember him in the best light or whatever, but it's a little bit like, but it's not like, she just got this emotional slap in the face, 2 episodes ago or whatever. It was, yeah, it really did not sit well with me to have her final moment. Wow, she's in the council meeting later, but like one of her final moments being like whitewashing this guy's history. It was so weird.
Yeah, I want to like that scene because I always really liked the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and I don't despite the writer's final word on it, I didn't want to believe that Jamie was actually the hateful person who would go back
Mm-hmm.
to Cersei, but I think they just really blew it with Jamie's departure from Winterfell. And if they had just done that differently, and they could have maybe still had his primary motivation being that he's in love with Cersei, but without ruining
Mm-hmm.
him quite to the ruining his arc.
Imagine if he said, "I'm gonna go stop Cersei. Listen, like I don't trust Daenerys. Is gonna back down. Cersei's not gonna back down. Innocent people are gonna get killed. I care about innocent lives.
Yeah.
Brienne, I have to leave you because I got to go stop my sister. I'm the only one who can make her see reason because she loves me. And you know what I mean? Like, let his last act be of a fucking hero.
Right.
And he can go and he can still get there, too late because it's, 4-month journey or whatever. Like, that's fine, but at least make him exit the main plot of the story on this high note of he's actually gonna go do the one thing he doesn't want to do, which is leave Brienne, because like his is a new chance of me being a good guy, the potential thing I have with you maybe or whatever, and I'm conflicted because I still love my sister, but whatever. But like that's all he had to do. So again, like the goal of Jamie leaving Winterfell and going to King's Landing in time for the ending, I agree with. It makes sense, but the execution of like why he decides to go, they just bungled the whole thing, and it just makes him go, yeah, I'm a villain, love me anyway, and it's like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, my perspective on that scene is like kind of skewed because I kind of want to forget about everything that happened with Jamie after like season 4.
Yeah.
I think that's where things went off the rails. And, by off the rails, I mean off what they did in the books, because in the books, is it a spoiler to say this? I don't even know. Um,
Technically.
in the books, he's not around Cersei nearly as much.
Mm.
And he. He comes back. He comes back after the purple wedding when Joffrey dies, and then he leaves, and he's not there when like Cersei's dealing with the High Sparrow and all that stuff. He's off doing a thing that they did put in the show, but they moved it later, in the Riverlands and stuff. So he's like leading an army and blah blah blah. She writes him a letter when she's imprisoned by the High Sparrow, and says like, help, I need help, come here soon. And he burns the letter, doesn't go, and he even thinks to himself like, I'll have to go back eventually, hopefully she'll be dead by then. He actually thinks that.
Yikes.
He actually thinks that.
So wait, why does he dislike her at this point?
Why does he dislike her? I think actually a lot of it goes back to um something. So I think you know what, it's a hard question.
Okay.
Apparently. So like, why does he dislike her? I think there's a variety of reasons. There's like a really simple reason that like she was you know getting it on with other men while he was out of town. And then there's, I think, the experience with Brienne, I think, sort of changes his perspective on who Cersei is as a person. And I think as he takes a
Oh,
look
you
at,
mean the thing that I'm talking about should have happened in the show?
yeah. So what happens is, God, okay, I'm getting into way too much. So just to avoid like recapping a
Sure.
huge portion of the books, because there's quite a bit. The point is, it leaves with like they don't even reunite after he leaves for this thing, and of course he might go back eventually. I'm not ruling that out, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a much stronger like break there
I see.
than I felt like they even put in the show, like, ever. I mean, even when he left to go to the north, it wasn't as dramatic as like,
Yeah.
I'm burning your letter for help and I'm hoping you're dead by the time I get back. It's so extreme.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I feel like the relationship between the two is a bit stronger. Both of them are point of view characters in the book, so you get each of Brienne and Jamie. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Cersei is too, but that's who I mean. And so you get a perspective on uh, the relationship and each other, I guess, from both points of view. And so anyway, I think the bond is stronger. And there's this whole thing with Jamie when he gets back after this thing with Brienne, where she brings him back, where he's like, he's Lord Commander of the King's Guard, and they have this little book where they, each Lord Commander writes like a history of his deeds, um, and so you can read back, and he's like looking through it, and he's like, my page has nothing. Like, what have I done? What am I doing with my life? What does
Mm.
it mean? I should have something worthwhile to write in here, and it feels like, and this is something that he shares with Brienne. And
Yeah.
so she knows about this. And so I feel like
Yeah.
poetically, there's something appropriate that she becomes the Lord Commander of the King's Guard, and she gets to put in, because her perspective on Jamie is definitely like she sees the good side of him. She does suppress the bad side. And so, from her point of view, I think she doesn't see it as a whitewashing. That's how she sees him. The positive
Yeah.
side,
From
like
her
she,
point of view, but her point of view is what the writers give her, you know. So there's
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
there's that thing. But I mean, I definitely I don't think it's not my problem isn't that she wouldn't do this. My problem is that she did this. If that makes sense. You know, my problem is this guy doesn't get to pay for his crimes like other characters got to pay for their crimes, or got worse deaths and endings
Yeah, yeah,
without
yeah. More from the
with
macro point of view. See, I just
yeah,
think
yeah,
as a
yeah.
character moment, it was one of the more satisfying to me
There's a
because it
lot
was
of
paying off a thing.
there's a
Like,
lot of moments that they pay off in the finale. Is a lot of that thing about Tyrion not being in the Song of Fire and Ice, which is a
right.
thing that was
Yeah.
that who was it who said that?
I think varies.
Yeah, he said, the history won't have your name
They
in
will
it.
never write about men like you and me. Yeah, like
Yeah,
it's, yeah.
which
Although
it's like
it's fucking ridiculous because he's
I
kind
agree.
of, yeah. I mean, he's
Yeah,
the hand.
it's like it only works to the degree that it ties to what Vera said, but like as a
Yeah.
practicality, it's real dumb.
Yeah.
Because like Sam knows who Tyrion is. It's one thing if like the history was written, 20 years from now or something, and Tyrion's dead, but like you know what happened contemporaneously. Like you didn't. So they chose you write about when Bran is chosen as king, and you don't write whose suggestion it was. I don't buy that.
Well, right, and you write about these various kings and queens vying for the
Hmm.
throne, but you don't write about the person who was hand to
One of the main
multiple
Lannisters,
of them.
hand of the both queens. Yeah,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
yeah, I didn't buy that, but I don't know. Just from that idea of like protecting Brienne's like autonomy as a character, her agency. It was just
Yeah.
weird for her to like have to do the man's work. Like it was just a
Yeah,
weird thing.
I guess for me, it's like I wish that they'd done a better job with a few other things so that that scene could have worked
Yes, yes,
perfectly,
yep, yep.
because
Yeah, they ruined it before that. And that's why I tried to not think about it. I thought about it as a follow up of their story in the books. And that made
Hmm.
it easier for me to enjoy the scene. Because, yeah, ugh.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Justin, you pointed out this thing that is mentioned in last episode where Jamie tells so Tyrion goes to free Jamie and says to him,
Oh, yeah.
all these people in King's Landing are gonna die, and Jamie says, "Yeah, I never really cared for them very much."
There you go.
Yeah, and that is a big, big
Yeah.
Yeah,
problem
so
for me
that's
with
where
this
they fucked
character.
up. That's where
Yeah.
they fucked up because the whole reason that he stabbed the Mad King, the reason he's called the Kingslayer, is because the Mad King said he was going to burn
Mm.
down King's Landing. It was specifically to save the people of King's
Well,
Landing.
that makes it seem like this is a reveal about that motivation. So I mean, I don't know what the answer would be, but it's to me, I would read that as, oh, they're sort of retconning or giving us a new light on why he killed the Mad King, but I don't know what that would be.
Well, there a major turning point in his dynamic with Brienne is when because Brienne, when they first meet, calls him the Kingslayer, is very derisive toward him, and
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point, I think it's after he's gotten his hand cut off, um, saving her from being raped by those. Who are those fucking people again?
Random Harrenhal assholes.
Harrenhal people, but yeah. Anyway, the he says, do you
They were
know
working for the Boltons
right with the bolt
at
right?
the
They're
time.
Bolton.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is a Bolton, I think, right?
Was
It
there an
doesn't matter.
actual
Anyway,
Bolton? Okay.
point is, there's this really emotionally tense scene in which Jamie tells Brienne about the Mad King.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever heard the story about what the Mad King was doing when I stabbed him?
Mm.
And that is like telling the viewer what to believe about Jamie.
Yep.
And it's just again and again they are just sort of like, oops,
Mm-hmm.
I changed my mind. And it
It's
comes
like, are they
across as
forgetting? Yeah, it's a weird. Like, do
right.
you forget what you wrote?
Right, and it makes me think about a very different show about the X Files, where because they have these long seasons and lots of seasons, they'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you this thing, and it's like the way that you're telling me this, I'm definitely supposed to believe this is absolutely true, and then a
Mm-hmm.
couple seasons later, they'll tell you something that is in total contradiction,
Mm-hmm.
and no, this is really true. And it's like, you expect that when the seasons are really long, there's tons of seasons, and the writers don't have total autonomy
Mm-hmm.
over, when to end and whatever else. But with Game of Thrones, this really shouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes across as lazy.
Yeah, it's a yeah. I don't like the term lazy when it comes to the situations because I think these writers work really hard to get it wrong. You know, like I don't think it's a lack of effort, which lazy suggests. I think it's that there's other reasons that it's
Hmm.
bad. It's not a lack of effort because I give them I assume that they work really hard and they really care and their names are on
I'm
the
sure
line
they work
and
hard.
that kind of thing. But they can still get it wrong by working hard. But so I don't want to call it
Yeah.
lazy. It's just bad writing or something.
Yeah, I
Uh,
guess lazy is not really what I mean so much as like it suited them for maximizing dramatic tension earlier in the
hmm
series for it to be X, and
hmm
now it suits them for it to be Y.
I
So they
see
just
what you're saying.
haven't
Yeah,
been Y, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, they're sort of taking the path of least resistance to kind of get what they want instead of doing the hard work of making things kind of work. And
Or just
yeah,
like living with the consequences of what they wrote previously.
hmm
I mean, which
yeah,
which
it's a
may or
weird
may
one.
not actually be harder to do that. I mean, maybe they just legitimately think that the story that they wrote here is better than what would have come about if they stuck with the
Yeah,
character
but it's so
arcs.
weird if you know that they were gonna end the series with Brienne writing these great things about Jamie. Well, why not let him live up to those in the final moments of the show? Like you
Yeah.
say, the scene when Tyrion's like, "Hey, they're gonna kill a bunch of people."
Yeah,
Ending.
yeah,
Why
totally agree.
twist the knife? Why make it go? He doesn't care about anybody but Cersei.
Yeah, because that's the
It's
point they wanted to make. It's so annoying. It's
but
so
why?
annoying.
But why is that a valuable point to make? Who like
A
I
good
don't.
question.
Yeah, I don't understand that. And
Yeah,
and it
no,
was also,
yeah.
yeah, it was also weird how dumb Tyrion was. He didn't make one right move this entire season. And someone pointed out online how he's not being very smart. Where like he frees Jamie from the safest place Jamie could be. Staying in Winterfell is the safest place he could be, and he frees him to his death. And it's like that when you put it that way, God, Tyrion, what are you doing, man? And it'd be different if it was like you have to go and, convince Cersei to whatever, it just didn't seem like it was a big mission. So uh it was just him, trying to help his brother, right?
Yeah, yeah, backdoor
Yeah.
deal.
I feel like they
Yeah.
Yeah.
try to soften it by having him like, you got to ring the bells. Remember to tell her to ring the bells.
Yeah, which didn't happen.
Ugh.
He didn't
He
communicate ring the
didn't.
bells.
No, no.
Yeah, and
Somebody
then we
rang the
No.
get and
bells.
then we got Euron again with that ending.
Ugh.
That was a horrible like what?
Ew.
And again, they keep
Oh.
doing this thing. Masande had that curse too, where like there's like somehow when you come out of water, there's only like one place to come out. So it was like it was that weird thing where like Masande gets captured. She's the only one who gets captured when the ships get destroyed. So wherever she washed up on shore was the one place they were looking for people. No one else got captured. And then like both Euron and Jamie end up in the same cove somehow,
Yeah,
like at the
that's
very end
terrible.
of the world. It's just like I don't understand what happened. And like Euron didn't care about anything. He was just like this nihilist character by the end. It was just, and then he's
Yeah,
like,
he
"I
didn't
killed
do
the
too
Kingslayer."
much.
You don't care. You don't care about that. That was never your goal. Like, who is even gonna know you kill? It's like you're going to your grave. The whole point about these like titles and legends is that people talk about you after your death, right? Like, who cares if you die knowing you killed the Kingslayer? No one else knows, so it didn't happen. So yeah, the Euron thing was super. Why even have a baby? I feel like it didn't even matter that she was pregnant. It seems like his motivation could have been just to get her pregnant. You know, like it didn't even have to come to fruition. Just being like, yeah, I want to be with her so I can sire an heir. You know, and it'll happen one day. It's like, why even make it a thing? Like, it didn't motivate anybody to do anything different. Yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Um,
So it sounds like we found some areas for improvement.
yeah,
We have
season 7
notes.
through 8.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do know that there's a tendency to, maybe overreact
Mm-hmm.
in some quarters to series finales
Has anyone ever done that
Uh-huh.
before?
that
I don't
don't
know anyone who's ever
quite.
done that before. Yeah, I think, overall it was I think the best thing I can say about it is the season was so bad that it tempered my expectations perfectly for the finale.
Yeah.
And I was like totally fine. I'm like, oh, whatever, this is good. The three main characters that I really cared about, uh I like how their endings went. That's that was probably 50% of what it could have liked about the finale. And then they get another 10 or 15% for some of the other character moments and stuff. And so yeah, C minus, C plus overall, I think. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say C. I'll give it a C.
Mm-hmm.
Are we just talking about the episode? Or like the show as a whole?
I mean the episode. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm so
Yeah.
disconnected from the show as a whole at
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
point.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's a bit tough. I
You
mean,
know, there was a time back in the earlier days when I really wanted to like do a podcast and like really,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I was like really excited about that idea. Um, I am glad that we didn't do that.
I was gonna say I think we dodged the bullet on that.
I definitely think we dodged a bullet on that.
I don't think I would have appreciated spending the time to do a podcast on this show. No.
Yeah, yeah, no. As it progressed, it became clear that
Mm-hmm.
actually the show isn't worth that
It's not
much
that
trouble.
Yeah.
I like the story, and I think the books are super cool. If you sort of like the show, but you want like a more detailed version that's like a bit or a lot more interesting, definitely
Mm-hmm.
recommend the books. They have their problems, but there's so much more detailed, and character development is much better. Everything is explored in a way that makes the plot more interesting overall because they don't shortcut everything. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
the problem is it's too much stuff, if
Yeah.
anything. Like I'll never finish this, it's so fucking complicated, but like it's enjoyable, and I am attached to the story in that way. But as for the show, yeah, early on it was really good, I think, and I think the
Yep.
casting was really good.
Yep.
I think the actors did a good job in general, even with the bad scenes. I think some of them did good this season with their stuff. But so I'll give them all credit for that. But yeah,
Yeah.
the
I think
wrap up.
the one question I had, one last question was John deciding to kill Daenerys. How did you guys think that worked? Because I thought it was again, it was almost like the Arya turning back, from killing Cersei thing. It was this weird thing of like it seemed to happen too quick. One scene he was like all bought in, and the
Yeah.
next scene he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill you now."
Yeah.
That works for me.
Yeah, I actually thought maybe the reason that happened is because he doesn't speak Valyrian, so he didn't know that she just said she was going to go conquer the rest of the world. So once she said it to him, it was like,
Mm.
oh, like that's how it came across. I don't know if that's
I
what we're
agree.
actually
I
supposed to
agree.
believe.
I think her deciding continuing to kill the rest of the people. I think it was more specifically that he realizes he doesn't know bad from good, or he doesn't know what's good, and then her answer was like, it doesn't matter who knows. I know, and so
Right.
that's the definition of tyranny. So
Yeah.
Right, right. I think he's realizing that she's a tyrant. Yeah, I that works for me because it's like a callback to the Kingslayer thing, but instead of stabbing her in the back, he,
mm-hmm,
stabs her to her face, and and I think he always comes across as ultra sincere to me.
mm-hmm.
Um,
It's the
Yeah.
hair.
yeah, to a fault, really.
Yeah.
um so yeah, that works for me. I don't want to see a version where there's like this long protracted process where he's sort of gearing up to kill her. I think it works better when it's a
Mm.
surprise.
I thought the after I thought at a certain point when they all got back to wherever they are, King's Landing or whatever, after the battle, I thought the plot of this episode was going to be John, Sansa, and Arya, and Tyrion sort of conspiring to kill her because they all realize how much of a threat she is, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was going to be more of like this mission or something because
Yeah.
I didn't know how he was going to get close to her, and except for and then of course he just walks up to her, so I was like, oh,
Right.
that's pretty
That was the big
easy.
secret.
Right.
Yeah, he'll just walk up to her.
Yeah, the thing that I wanted to see happen, I forget if I told you this, but I wanted to see Grey Worm just walk up to her as a trusted military advisor
Mm-hmm.
and kill her, and then take off the face, and it turns out it was Arya.
Arya, yeah.
But you can't always
She
have
was
it
done
all.
assassinating. At a certain point, she
Yeah.
just stopped
Yeah.
doing that. It wasn't a thing she was going to do anymore. And it's interesting that she just stopped being the faceless person.
Yeah, we do not see, as far as I know, the only time we see her use a face outside of Bravos is when she kills Walter Frey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, it's kind of like Bran, where we don't see a lot of consequences of him knowing all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, I kind of respect that, because that is, both of those are really complicating factors to have in a show.
Mm-hmm.
Like Alias had this problem when you have shows where people can look exactly like other characters, that becomes a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, Lost had that as well.
Oh, was there a character who could look like somebody else?
Yeah, I think that happened once or twice, and they had to write in he can't do that anymore because
because of reasons.
because dreams.
Well, all right. Well, Game of Thrones. What a
Game
game
of
it was.
Thrones.
What a game
What
it
a game
was.
it was.
Yeah,
There are worse games to play.
Yeah, I got the biggest thing I wanted, which was the throne destroyed and a new.
There you go. You're welcome.
So yeah, I can't complain. I mean, that was a big. They could have totally ended it more traditionally.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I like when Sam proposed democracy and they all laughed at him.
Laughed, yeah.
Yeah.
LOL.
Yeah, because it was. I mean, none of those people should think that makes any sense. So I appreciated the realism of that, and that they sort of did one step, this incremental change towards democracy. Well, we'll choose now, and then they'll expand the franchise, as they say, over time.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could have been worse.
Could have been worse. Are you guys interested at all in any of the spin-off shows? Or is it a wait and see what they're about kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a wait and see.
I think a priori I'm not interested, but if the show looks good, it doesn't necessarily have to be hurt or helped in any way by this series, because it can be very separated in time. So I don't know, I really like Better Call Saul, and I didn't think I would like that. And it's like a direct prequel, I don't think any of these are going to be like right before Game of Thrones or anything. So I think they could be good shows.
we see Ned Stark being born.
Oh God.
Oh, please, let's see that.
Good
Right.
cast. I mean, I think there's a chance they could be decent, and if it seems like they might be good, I theoretically could be interested. But yeah, without any information, I'm not just automatically interested because it's a Game of Thrones thing.
Yeah, I agree. And we
Yeah.
saw what they did with Hodor's prequel. I don't need to see anything like that again.
God.
What was Hodor's prequel?
Hodor's
Oh,
prequel was
boy.
like 2 scenes where he's like walking around, and then second
Oh, yeah.
one he says, "Hold the door until
There
he
it
becomes
is.
Hodor." Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
All right, well, all hail King Bran.
All hail,
Long may
yes,
he
all hail,
reign.
long may he
If he
reign.
even cares.
If
Ugh.
he even cares.
Yeah.
Who
King
knows?
Three-Eyed Raven. Of the
He was like,
Amazons.
didn't he say like I'm not even Bran anymore?
Oh,
Like,
don't bring that
Yes,
up.
he
He's
said that.
he's
and
Bran.
so like now the question is like, was he manipulating everyone into this outcome?
Let's
Is it one of
hope
those?
so.
I mean, is that good?
No, it's
Oh,
terrible,
God.
but like, it would make it more interesting and like coherent at least.
Yeah, like I can't interfere with the timeline because if I do anything, I might not become king.
Yeah, and I have to be
There were
king
these
because
fans who had this theory that the previous Three-Eyed Raven was
had a
behind.
plan.
Yeah,
It's
so
true. It's
maybe this is
true.
it.
It makes
The
it seem
plan was
like
to
they were on
get
the right track.
the plan was to get Bran to be king.
Well, I think they had more to it than that. This is a very, very watered down version, but it did involve Bran, so.
I think I smell a spinoff. All right.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time.
See you next time then.
Ciao. Bye, Craig.